Hey there, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here on Wave Now. I'm Myra, and sorry, it's been a busy Tuesday so far. Hope you're having a fantastic morning. So we are going live to the Van Hoos Education Center where Superintendent Dr. Marty Pollio is going to be talking about his retirement, as he announced just recently that he's going to be retiring here short in a couple of months. So we wanted to get the very latest on his decision to do so. Looks like they're coming out of the building, and wanted to bring you this live.
Hey, everybody. Walk up, start.
Yeah,
Walk up, start.
You want us to start or you?
I'll just start. I'll just have a statement. So, I just, first I wanted to say during my evaluation period back in May, the very first one, I had alerted the board that this would be my final year. So it really came down to a matter of when to announce it. In 2022, when they gave me a contract extension, they asked me for a 3-year commitment, which at that time I didn't know if I was going to make it 3 years or not. But I gave a 3-year commitment, and this being 24-25 being the third year of that 3-year commitment. So this has been in the works and the plans for me for a good amount of time, without a doubt. I, as you know, spent a great deal of time on that letter that I wrote last week and put out on Friday. I am not one, usually I have a gift for talking and gab, but I think the letter that I put out really says it all. So that's what I really wanted to speak, because I spent a lot of time really putting my heart and soul into that letter. As I said in the letter, at the beginning of the letter, it took me 4 weeks to be able to press send on it, because it was such a difficult and emotional time for me to do that. This district means a whole lot to me. It really does. The people in this district mean a whole lot to me. It's my 30th year in public education and my 28th year in JCPS. 18 of them now have been in administration, either being a principal of a high school or superintendent. Those are very high stress jobs that are challenging. And so when you talk about, I will say being a high school principal is a major challenge all the time. 10 full years at that and 8 years as superintendent. Given everything I've had for this district, going to continue to do that until the end of this contract, which is July 1st, 2025. So about 9 more months, I think, from today being October 1st, as a matter of fact. So 9 months from today, continue giving everything I have for this district, because it means so much to me. I've said this before. I can't imagine doing this job in another city where you don't have roots, where you didn't come up through the district and you care so much about the kids and the community, because it's a tough job. It really is. Very proud of the things that have happened. We've had major challenges, there are no doubts, and setbacks. And so it's, not an easy thing to work through, but I'm proud of what we've accomplished. Very proud of this district. It means so much to me, the kids, the families, the parents, everybody in this district. Just very proud to be a part of it and represent it as superintendent over the past 8 years. Happy to take any questions that you have.
When you think about who's going to be coming after you and how hard this job is, how much it pays, who do you think is going to be able to step into those shoes? Do you think they're going to be able to have those hometown roots like you have?
I think we have some opportunities internally that I think are candidates that would be very strong for the position, no question about it. I'm not sure what the board will do. It'll be their decision. I'll be here to assist in any part of the process they need. I don't think I'll be involved in any part of the selection itself, but if there's any part of the process that will be needed, I will be here to select them. I had said last year about after that first day that there wouldn't be any candidates. I was probably a little emotional at that time and going through some difficult times, no question about it. The most difficult days of my tenure were those 3-4 days from the first day of school until we got back into school, without question. So I think there'll be candidates. I do. I'm not going to, I'll be very candid. It's a very difficult job. The shelf life of a superintendent right now is very short. across the state, across the nation. I think out of the Great Council of the Great City Schools, out of about 80, I think is the number now. I don't have the official number of districts. 77 now have turned over since 2021. I don't think that's good for education. I really don't. I mean, I think if you're going to be successful in this, you can't have turnover year after year after year. And so we have not had that in Jefferson County. And so we've had 2 superintendents in 14 years. So to get back to your question, yes, I think there will be candidates for the position.
Dr. Pollio, was there a specific event or moment that led to this decision?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it was, like I said, I will say this, my family has been encouraging me to do this for a while now. No, it was, once again, in 2022, when we were doing contract negotiations, I had originally asked for a 2-year extension. We kind of went into some debate whether it be 2 or a 3-year extension. Eventually settled on a 3-year extension, which would be my 8th year, 2025, which is the end of this year. So that was well before any of the challenges we had with transportation. It's the 3rd of 3 years. That made it difficult, there's no doubt about it. But this has been kind of the target date all along for me. And being my 30th year in education and in Kentucky teacher retirement system.
Why did you decide to send out the email on Friday specifically? What prompted you to hit send that day?
I don't know. I was thinking towards the end of the week before fall break is kind of a time to do it. I was thinking of Thursday of doing it, but for some reason I just wasn't able to press send. So I decided on Friday to do it. I told the staff around me that it would be on Friday. I had made that decision, had notified the board a few days earlier that it would be late in the week, that I would be, or within the next couple of days, a few days, I think I said. So I believe I sent that to them on maybe Tuesday. So it was either going to be Thursday or Friday. I had no idea we were going to be canceling school on that Friday, and so had already planned to do it. So honestly, Jess, I mean, I was thinking, I really did want to get through the first day of school before announcing it, because I wanted to make sure we successfully got back to school, which we did. I had already made up my mind well before that this would be it, but I wanted to get back to school, and then it was just a matter of when. So I was kind of thinking around Labor Day. It definitely takes a solid 8 to 9 months to go through this selection process in the right way, where districts are not rushing the selection. So I knew it was coming up against that time where I was going to do what's right for the Board of Education and the community, that I needed to do it. So to be honest, Friday was just a random day.
During your tenure, there's been a persistent public opinion that the district, such as it is unmanageable. What is your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, I'll be candid. It's difficult. I mean, there is no doubt about it. I mean, any large district superintendency is challenging, but there are 29 or 30 districts larger than Jefferson County Public Schools in the nation. So to say that we are, this outlier that is larger than most districts is just not the case whatsoever. But I mean, there's no doubt large urban school superintendency it's a challenge. It is tough. I say this, I think the hardest part of the job, and this is for any superintendency that has a multitude of schools. But when you are a principal at a high school, you can lead by proximity, meaning if there is an issue in the school that you need to address, you can go to that spot and deal with that with your presence. It's very difficult to do that as a superintendent when you have 155 schools. So no, I do not believe it's too big. I think there are improvements that our board is making on oversight and management that I think are going to be important in the process. But just like any other large organization, it's all about the team you surround yourself with.
What recommendations do you have for the person who comes after you?
Oh boy, that's a good one. The recommendations I have, first of all, you better have very thick skin. This is a job that is across the nation. I talk with my colleagues all the time of large urban districts. We're all facing many of the same challenges and the same criticisms. I was just reading this morning in the New York Times about the delays in buses throughout New York City right now this year, and how the kids are missing millions of minutes of instructional time. So it's almost rinse and repeat across other districts across the nation. So number one, I think you've got to have really thick skin. I think that you better darn stay off of social media and probably the local news. Sorry guys, but you better be willing to, because I think it can really skew your decision making in today's world if you're looking at opinions of hundreds of thousands of people out there. I think the most important thing I would say about anyone who is taking this job, they better be very passionate about the work. You better truly care about this district. You better truly care about the kids of this district, because if you do not have that passion and fire, it'll beat you down pretty quickly.
I know this investigation predates your time as superintendent, but can you talk about being the one that brought the resolution with the Department of Education surrounding how Black students were disciplined within the district?
OCR's been at JCPS since 2013. It's a very interesting phenomenon that they went from 2013 to about 2017 with their hands a lot in the district, and then we didn't hear much for a couple of years, and then COVID happened, and then it kind of came back in 2021 with their following through on some of the things they started in 2013 to 2017. And honestly, it would be, and I talked about it a lot, about the frustration and challenges about being seen as over-disciplining and under-disciplining at the same time. You all hear a lot, I'm sure, out there about how we're under-disciplining students, and yet OCR is telling us in many ways we're over-disciplining students. It also goes to the message to staff. When staff hears all across this district, and you may hear this, central office won't let us discipline. But then we have OCR over top of us saying, in the resolution, you have to track teachers who write a certain amount of referrals and really track those to see if it's a disproportionate amount. If we do that as a central office in a district, the message staff may be hearing is, I'm not supposed to discipline students. And so that is one of the very difficult things in this job, is trying to navigate through a community who says we're under-disciplining while a federal government who says we're over-disciplining. So it definitely goes back, a lot of it to 2013 and beyond. What frustrated me in our conversations with OCR was that they would bring up a situation from 2015 or 16. We wouldn't have a name. We wouldn't have who the student was. We couldn't look if there was any context to it. There was some, I don't want to say it was all before me, because there is some data from 21, 22, but it was a couple schools that identified 11 students. But once again, we couldn't look at the students to see, is there context to it? It was 11 students. Is there context to it? Is there a reason why? And then asking a principal or assistant principal who may not even be at the school anymore, why, what happened there 3-4 years ago, is very difficult. So I'm not saying OCR is wrong about it. There's clear disproportionality in the district. I'm just sharing the frustrations that I have with it.
How do you think your departure will affect the progress that's been made with the district under your leadership?
Well, I'm going to tell you, anytime there's a change in leadership, there's going to be a challenge to continuity. And so I will say this, there are there's positive and negatives that I've seen from coming from within the school district. There's positive and negatives from going outside of the school district. A negative of going outside of the school district is you are taking, someone's going to have to come in and take 2 to 3 years to really learn the job. That's what happens over and over again in large school districts. And if you, do that rinse and repeat in 18 to 24 months, change and come from outside, then, that is a challenge, that it is just constant, churn of leadership. That's happened in many cities. It's happened in Charlotte, St. Louis, Cincinnati. I could go on and on. I think, the real challenge is, let's use the program like the Academies of Louisville. We have really gained traction in the academies of Louisville to the point where we're a national model, and cities are coming in to see us and what we're doing. And how that we just had one recently. We're going to have about 750 people come in and see us in the spring with our data that shows, record graduation rates and post-secondary readiness rates. So leadership turnover can lead to, is the person coming in, do they have an investment in an initiative like the Academies of Louisville, or is it something else? Now, as a leader, it's their right, whoever the next leader is, to decide what that is. But also, it is a threat to things that are going well. Is that going to continue going well, or will it lose steam and move on to something else?
The legislative threats to the district, for lack of a better word, seem to have mounted during your tenure. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there is no question that is happening on a national level when we look at especially urban districts. If we're being candid here, yes, Fayette County Public Schools is in the Council of Greater City Schools, but we are the true, real, only large urban school district in this state. So first of all, we've got a target. There is no question about us. And if we look at what's happening across this nation, education is under attack, and it really started before COVID, but I think COVID amplified that with all of the political challenges around should we be in school or should we not be in school? Should we wear masks? Should we not wear masks? That clearly became a political divide from the left and the right, where schools were kind of trapped in the middle. But then all the social issues that have mounted since that time too, whether it's around critical race theory, which has seemed a little bit to come and go, LGBTQ issues. I could go on and on about the social issues right now that are dominating discussion around education. And so when you come to the urban school district, this is going to be the one that's going to be the eye of the storm many times when it comes to politics. So I think that's a part of it, but I don't want to paint a broad brush and say that all politicians are necessarily in that. It is there are still significant disparities at about the same rate we have some things we're proud of in outcomes between black and white students. I've worked hard. Everything that I have focused on has really been, right or wrong, how we can bridge that gap and lessen that achievement gap. It is what most large superintendents are working on right now across this nation. And so when I say my focus on racial equity, it is about ensuring that we give kids every opportunity to be successful. I believe this, you've heard me say this 100 times, kids who have the least amount of resources in their homes need to have the most amount of resources in their schools. We do not do that in the United States of America. We absolutely do not do that. City after city, if you go to the schools in our communities of need, you will see very different looking just on the outside school buildings than what you would see if you went into our suburban communities of wealth. And that's heartbreaking to me. So we're going to change this as a nation, we have to focus on racial equity. So I think our board is pretty committed to that, so I would be surprised. I don't know. I mean, we do have 3 new board members coming in, and so I can't say that's close to a majority. So I can't say what the future board outlook will be, but it seems to me there is a commitment of this board to racial equity, so I would be very surprised if they selected a candidate who was not in line with that. Chris, did you have something?
What are your plans after retirement? Are you going to continue in a different place?
I'm still open right now to what I'm going to do. I will say this: I'm 53 years old. I am not ready to go down and play golf. I don't play golf. I really don't have many hobbies, which is scary to me of what I'm going to do. So I am not ready to be retired, so to speak, at this point. It is time for me to move on from this position and do something else. I hope to I've got a real passion for public education, Krista. I mean, public education to me, and I sometimes get emotional about this, whether people agree or disagree with what I've done, the future of our community, the future of this Commonwealth, and the future of this nation is going to be based upon the success of public education. We can do, whether vouchers pass, an amendment to passes or not, and we have vouchers, whether we have charters, whether we have very successful private schools, all of that can be a reality. But without successful public schools across the state, we are going to struggle as a community and as a nation. When we talk about things like crime and safety, to me, the number one solution to crime and safety is education. When we talk about housing, when we talk about poverty, all of these things, when we talk about health and wellness, let's be honest, the number one thing we can do with that is public education. We should invest our dollars in public education. You know, we have 20,000 multilingual learners now in our district, which I'm very proud of. We have 13,000 special education students in our district. We have 70,000 kids in need that are free and reduced lunch. Those kids are going to be in public education moving forward. If we're going to be successful as a community, we have to do that. So I'm going to continue to be a champion for public education. I don't want to necessarily, whoever the next superintendent is, to be involved. I want to let that person be successful. I think there's nothing worse than someone who leaves that's still involved in everything. But I do want to be involved. I would like to be involved in moving forward around policy and education, around accountability in education, and how ridiculous our current accountability system is. I want to be involved around education funding, but my focus will be on public education for the rest of my life and doing everything I can to ensure that we support public education in this nation.
We've reported on a lot of difficulties about the district during your tenure. I'm curious, what would you consider your worst day on the job, and how is that affected?
Without a doubt, is it August 9th, 2023? I think that was August 9th, 2023 was my worst day on the job by a long shot, because I had invested so much in making change to correct our transportation issues that were happening, and truly felt, and it was the right thing to do. It did not work out the way that I wanted it to work out, clearly. And I made a lot of errors in there as a leader that I learned from. And so I think the most challenging part about that was, as the day started, a lack of real feeling like I could control the situation, because we knew pretty early on that it was going to be not a successful first day. And so it's a long 10, 12, 14 hours that you go through right there. So that was my hard. There were a lot of hard days. I can say this. There were a lot of really hard days around what to do during COVID. You know, I'm not an epidemiologist. I never felt like I was trained or had enough information to make significant decisions on what we should do around a pandemic. I tried to follow, and from the very beginning, I said I'm going to follow the CDC guidance on this. And so every time we had to make a tough decision, like we're extending school being NTI or wearing masks, the amount of blowback was immense on that. And that's my job. That's what I signed up for. So I'm not saying blowback was the problem, but just the lamenting of what to do around that. had some tough days around making decisions about go to school, not go to school, whether that was teacher sick outs, whether that was weather related. Those are really, really hard decisions where half of the people are unhappy with you and half of the people are happy with you. I made a couple of major mistakes when it came to whether go to school or not go to school. One of them was an ice storm, I believe, in 2018 or 19, where we lost power in about 4 or 5 schools. The roads were fine. We went to school, but 5 schools were without power. We thought power was going to come back on within the hour. It did not. And so we had kids sitting at Atherton High School in a cold gym without power. And then a couple of years ago, when we did an early dismissal instead of canceling, and the snow came in about 10 a.m., and it was pretty disastrous fortunately, no one was hurt in either of those situations, but those were 2 very, very long days that I regret those decisions. So that's a few. I mean, there's probably more than that I could go back to, but that's a few of them.
What do you believe
I got plenty of time.
What do you believe your greatest accomplishment is?
And I'll say this, I will always stick with my greatest accomplishment being resiliency. First and foremost, and I said this in my letter, the paralysis of not doing anything is real in being a superintendent, because you get the job, you take a couple of years to learn the job. I had a benefit which is one of the benefits of being within, that I knew the district better than someone coming from outside. So that learning curve was a little bit less than I will say this, the learning curve of being a superintendent was immense. And so, but after 2 years, when you start to learn the job, you're starting to worry about having a second contract, because your contract is a 4-year contract. And so you have to have the board on your side to get a second contract. So usually what that means is most superintendents say, I can't do much that's going to cause controversy over that 3rd and 4th year because I need that second contract. And so all too often what it means is superintendents aren't making major change. The thing I'm most proud of, number 1, is resiliency. Number 2, in 2019, we decided to make major change to the district. Some of it has gone very well. Some of it has had challenges. Some of it we've had to adjust. But we made all that change and asked for the district, asked for this community to fund that in a tax increase, which had never happened above 4% in the history of JCPS, and we did it during a pandemic. So I will look back at a lot of those changes and be very proud of those. But without a doubt, I think it's absolute resiliency to go through what we've gone through. And I mean, no other educator anywhere in the history, other than all of us that are in the job, from 2020 to 2022 have gone through a pandemic. None of us have gone through the staff shortages like we've gone through in the past 3 or 4 years. So I just think the resiliency and sticking with it because of the kids in this district has allowed me to at least be successful with the change that I've tried to champion.
Which changes do you count as successes?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of them are still to be determined as successful. So I don't think you can determine any change as successful within 1 or 2 years. I mean, I think all major change at a district this level is going to take 5, 6, 7 years with someone sticking with it and, making the adjustments necessary along the way and developing roots in that change to make sure that we're successful. So, I mean, without a doubt, I will say I believe our student assignment plan is what is right for kids. I think it is clear families in West Louisville are wanting to select a school close to home. We still got a lot of work to do to build the buildings that are necessary. We're going to have an issue with overcrowding. There is no question about it. So we're going to have to build new schools in West Louisville, continue to resource them in ways, continue to find ways to make sure that we staff them. But I consider that to be a real success when we look at and families that thank me for allowing them the opportunity to make that choice, whether to stay close to home or go far away from school, which we offer. I think our facilities plan is very successful. I think our summer learning program, which we had never had before, has been very successful. Literacy and numeracy plans across this district, although just planted, is going to be a massive improvement. I went to 25 elementary school classrooms 25 of them 2 weeks ago. I went to St. Matthews Elementary, Foster Elementary, Atkinson Elementary, and Okolona Elementary, which is a wide swath of this community. First of all, I want to say I went to 25 schools and did not see one discipline issue in 25 schools. They did not know we were coming. We walked in, picked the classrooms to walk into. But seeing kids across this district with aligned curriculum and research-based how we teach literacy is huge. The same with numeracy. That's going to take time. That is just going to take time because it is hard to pivot and change. So I think those are things I'm very proud of. Academies of Louisville, Explore Pathways, I'm extremely proud of. But all of those changes will be susceptible to being unsuccessful if there's not a commitment to say, let's continue to examine it. Let's say what's going well, not what's not going well, and adjust on those. This is not where you can plant a flag and say we won that battle. So I think it'll take time to see what those are.
Are you proud of how you handled these other situations where you talk about people are half happy, half unhappy? You know, you're caught in this tug of war between left and right and on social issues, racial issues, everything, such as based in the public school system.
Yeah, I mean, it took me time. It really did. It took me time to really have the skin thick enough to understand that, or not understand, but to be able to deal with that, knowing that I was going to get, 50 emails, some saying some very valid things to me, such as kids are missing school time. And that broke my heart. I mean, I hated that. Other emails not being so friendly or nice. And so it took me some time to be able to understand that and better deal with that. That's the resiliency I talked about. I think that what I try and I continue to try to do the best I can is to base decisions based upon research, those that have been successful with it, research that is peer reviewed. So I think research has become a little bit of a word that's thrown out lately, not a Google search, but a peer-reviewed research on what's been successful. Visit and talk to other colleagues who have gone through this. And then with things like COVID, right or wrong, is to base my decisions on what the experts tell me to do. And then knowing that I'm trying to do what is best for children. Everyone always says in this job, do what's best for kids and then you will be successful. Unfortunately, there's not a handbook that tells you what that is. So when you have a pandemic that was not taught to you in superintendency school of what do you do when a pandemic hits, you've just got to make the decisions based upon the experts and what's right for kids. You look back, I wish our kids could have been in school quicker, but you're also dealing with the fact of some people telling you you may kill people if you bring them back to school and you're hurting learning if you don't bring them back to school, which both can be true, which makes it real challenging to make those tough decisions.
Do you have anyone in mind internally to take your spot?
I don't think it's appropriate right now for me. I don't know who even wants it right now, to be honest with you. I mean, I do think we have a couple of candidates internally that have the capacity and ability to do that, but it would be unfair for me to say that without them first saying I want the job.
What kept you going through the good times and also what kept you going through the bad times?
So what kept me going through, my wife would always say when I came home from work, she could tell when I was in a school because I was in a much better mood than when I was in this building all day. So when I had the opportunity to go into a school and interact with kids, it's what kept you going. I mean, you get so caught up in some of the narratives around things that aren't going well. And then you go into a school and you spend a half a day in a school and walk around and talk to kids. It really makes a difference in how you keep going. I mean, and then I said this in my letter. I mean, I've had plenty of people say things to me that I'm not doing a good job. But the most important thing for me is if I talk to educators and they encourage me and say, thank you, keep going. That has kept me going. So I really think it's the JCPS community. This is a school district that continues to take hits year after year after year. But I'm going to tell you, the people in this school district, the kids, the families, the employees are what makes this a fantastic school district. I think sometimes people get a little shy to stick their head up and talk that because there will be people who will want to chop them down. But I tried to say it a little bit in my letter: stand tall, be proud of what we do, because public education is serving all kids. No matter what they bring into the school, we're not going to say, I'm sorry, we're not going to educate you because you're a multilingual learner. We accept all students. And so I'm very proud of this district, but I think what keeps me going are the people in this district. My team keeps me going, wanting to do what's right. And really, most importantly, is to get this district to a spot where I could pass the baton off to somebody else and say, it's your turn now.
What's left to do in the 9 months to make sure that baton pass goes real smooth?
I think really what kind of Jess asked me, which was, we've got, of the changes we've made, we've got some work we've got to do to solidify those changes. My goal is to get them as deeply rooted as possible. At 9 months, we'll not get these changes deeply rooted, but get them as close to deeply rooted as possible as I can. So around things like student assignment, with some of the things that we've got to shore up to make sure it's the best possible, it's in the best possible place where we hand it off, that it's going to be successful. From facilities to transportation, it would have been, and there, a lot of people say, why did you stick through last year? And especially in the spring. I wanted to make the tough decisions that had to be made around transportation. As much as I hated making those decisions, I did not want to. We could have limped through this year as well, where I said we're continuing to have millions of kids late to school. Kids late to school every single day impact student outcomes. There's no way around it. We had kids missing reading and math every single day. And I felt it was, that this, and I'll say it, I had developed the plan. There were outside factors that led to the ineffectiveness of transportation, such as a shortage of bus drivers, but I had to take ownership that I had a major part in the errors that occurred. So I wanted to make those tough decisions that needed to be made last spring so that we could have successful transportation this year, so that whoever gets the job is not being faced with those type of decisions right off the bat. Now, there is no doubt whoever gets the job is going to have tough decisions right away. That's just the nature of this job right now. So that's really what I want to do in the next 9 months. The more I can shore up these things and get us to a place, ensuring, I think a big one for me is going to take some steps to ensure that staffing in our highest need schools is better each and every year than it's ever been. For the student assignment plan to be successful, we have to have staffing, appropriate staffing levels at those schools. And so there's no doubt about that. That will be my central focus moving forward, is making sure we do that. So getting those things to the best possible spot I can get them to before July 1st will be my goal.
That's good.
I'm good.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate all of you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.